She waited 3 hours. He never came. That should have been the worst day of her life. But what happened next was something no what's that could plan. She married a stranger. And that decision unlocked a truth neither of them was ready for. The cold gray walls of the courthouse said nothing. I had waited 3 hours, exactly at the time my husband had promised me. I had bought a bouquet of roses, a light pink, neither too cheap nor too expensive. In it were the remnants of happiness, now reduced to a pure dream. The destruction of the wall clock was silent but persistent. With each second, I felt like a living creature falling into hot water. The temperature was rising and I was struggling to breathe. Mitchell hadn't just abandoned me. Every promise he'd made, every word he'd chosen was now poison inside me. "Madam, would you like to come back another day?" The female employee, perhaps 25 years old, had her head set on becoming assistant manager. Or was it me who was getting old? Perhaps from being so emotional? I shook my head. "No, merciless, but I'm leaving. I can't wait any longer for this." The marriage papers in my bag, yes. I carried them with me, felt so heavy. It felt like I was holding concrete blocks. Papers Mitchell hadn't signed yet. The lawyer said it was a legal process, a serious decision. But me, I had only hoped. When I left the courthouse, the parking lot wasn't entirely empty. A few cars were still there, perhaps. Other people's personal tragedies were hidden within. As I sat in the seat of my car, I imagined everyone seeing hands not raised to the steering wheel, just a weeping sound, a shallow weeping sound. My cell phone had just gone silent. No message from Mitchell. No apology, no explanation, no forgive me. Just absolute silence. Before I leaned my head against the phone screen, I wanted to delete the photos of couples who had found each other. But I didn't. Staying silent hurts a little more. But maybe it was a self-punishment ritual because I deserved to pay the price. The phone rang. Cadence. My friend Priya's voice held an unwanted sense of worry. "Yes," I murmured. "How are you, damn it? Did he do it again?" "He did it again," I replied, perhaps holding a glimmer of hope in my voice, because I knew it could have been worse. At least he'd chosen the courthouse. At least he'd said he wanted to come for the signature, even if he'd left me stranded. "Come to my place. I've prepared a spot for you. Remy Martin is here, and I'll be making that chiltepé soup." At moments like these, Priya's offer was like a flying fish wing reaching me. But I went home, to the apartment. Mitchell's scent was still there. The smell of the scarves he'd bought, his shoes, even the shirt that had a faint masculine scent. I thought I was going to cry, but there was only an empty numbness. When I opened the door, someone called out to me, "Cadence." I turned around at an unexpected sound. Standing behind the door was a tall man in a black shirt. I hadn't learned his name because I was seeing him for the first time, but his face bore a pained expression. Helpless, eyes filled with deep despair. The look of someone who understood everything. "Yes," I replied. "I'm Ethan," he said simply. "I live in this building." Why did she smile at me? Because we felt each other's pain? Yes, I think so. At the courthouse door, in its empty rooms, in the labyrinth of paperwork, perhaps there were people who lived with us. "What's wrong?" I asked. Ethan then took a few steps and leaned against the doorframe. "Maybe think about it. Maybe we could both have avoided being here. We don't both have to be alone. We both went to the same courthouse on the same day, at the same time." "What do you mean?" I asked. Perhaps I was a little scared, or perhaps a little curious, or perhaps there was a feeling that a door was opening in the face of despair. Ethan stared at me with cold eyes. There was no anger in him, just despair, but there was something else too. Determination. Perhaps rebellion. Neither of us wanted to go here to get married. We were both abandoned by someone else. Maybe... He paused, choosing his words. "Maybe instead of deceiving each other, we can make a fair deal." "A fair deal?" I smiled. There was no joy in it, just a swallow. "Ethan, I don't know you." "We can change that," he said. "My name is Ethan Burke. I'm 32 years old. I have my own business empire. I've never been in debt. We have no problems. But my mother has cancer, in its final stages. Her only wish is to see me married and have a family. My ex-girlfriend ran away when she found out about my mother's illness, because she didn't want to carry such a burden." The words fell like stones into my heart, but I stopped. I lifted my head. Perhaps despair is enough to recognize each other. "My name is Cadence Hayes. I'm 30 years old. I'm a graphic designer. That's all. Yes, said Ethan. Maybe that's enough. These sentences developed very quickly. I was never prepared for such a suggestion. But at that moment, beneath Ethan's cold logic, I felt an equal amount of human suffering. Perhaps despair is a stronger bond than love. Perhaps betrayal unites people. We went back to the courthouse. The hours flew by. Ethan's paperwork was complete. Completing mine only required a few signatures. A childish decision in just 15 minutes, with the firmness of a stamp. Ethan and I were legally married. There was no wedding night. No flowers, just a freshly inked marriage certificate and 2 people, who were practically strangers to each other. Ethan's apartment was designed for Felix Clerk, who is 2 years old, and the child he has from another relationship. Then I'm not prepared at all. It's on the central floor, clean, almost impersonal. It's like confronting a visual, life but no soul. There are clean sheets in the bedroom, Ethan said. You can sleep there. I'll stay in the living room. I accepted the decision. There was a kind of respect in the silence. But sleep wouldn't come. In bed, on a strange pillow, in Ethan's house, I questioned the decision of my life. Was I like Mitchell? Perhaps I was far worse. At least Mitchell had chosen a noble man. I had married a stranger. The next morning, she received a message from Mitchell. On my cell phone. Cadence, I apologize for being late. An important client meeting came up. Can you forgive me? Forgiveness. I read the message 10 times. Then I took a breath and typed in the box. Mitchell, you're way too late. I'm sending you my marriage certificate. I signed it with someone else. After sending the message, I turned off my phone and went to Ethan's kitchen. Was he making tea there? Yes, he was. He prepared 2 cups, humming a melody I hadn't heard before. Hello, she said. How did you sleep? That's bad, I said. I know, he said. I slept badly too. This sentence was the first true words spoken by 2 people who understood each other. Then tears welled up in my eyes. Not for him, just for myself, and perhaps a little for Mitchell. Perhaps it was my desperation, my irrationality. But Ethan's words as he handed me a cup of tea, anything can happen. There's always light, gave me a little hope. The doctor called me to the courthouse. Ethan's mother's illness had progressed rapidly. She would need to stay in the hospital. Ethan's face turned icy. Then he took me to the hospital. In the dull, dry room, despite the bright lights, the old woman lay in her bed. She looked like Ethan's mother. Her eyes were slightly open. My son, she whispered. Who brought you here? This is my mother, Cadence. My wife, said Ethan. The woman closed her eyes, then opened them. She looked at me, with deep eyes. The bride? Why didn't you tell me? It's new, said Ethan. But it's true. I held her mother's hand. She was so thin, her bones almost visible beneath her skin, but it was warm. Goodbye, Mrs. Burke, I said. Sophia, she said, pulling it out. Please, Sophia, say, you are my bride now. Sent a shiver down my spine. Perhaps because I'd never been so close to Mitchell's mother. Perhaps because Ethan's mother's sincerity seemed more genuine than all my lies. When we left the hospital, I held Ethan's hand. For the first time, I started to feel like I belonged in his family. Maybe it wasn't just acting. Maybe there was a touch of something truly happening. Thanks, said Ethan, for being here. Yes, I said. To be here. That night I prepared dinner. In Ethan's kitchen, I used leftover ingredients. Chicken, vegetables, some spring onions. Ethan helped with the preparations, dancing along. For the first time, the silence wasn't painful. It was comforting. Maybe this marriage could work out in a way I'd never considered. After dinner, Ethan asked, Cadence, what do you think about people who deceive us? She seemed to turn her head away. Perhaps she was thinking about her mother's illness. Or perhaps about the time we had spent together. What do you mean? So, he said. Mitchell, my ex-girlfriend. Why did they leave us? Could I find the answer? Despair, I said finally. Because when love becomes a duty, some people run away. Yes, said Ethan. But you didn't run away. Didn't know where to go? This conversation brought us a little closer to each other. At midnight, I watched Ethan work in his engineering office. Codes, designs, mathematical problems. All of it provided him with a sense of calm. I drew my designs on my tablet. Hours passed. The morning woke me. Outside the window, the sun was casting a reddish light. It was an unusual sunrise, as if the world had moved somewhere else. Or maybe I had. Weeks passed. She received another message from Mitchell. He was marrying someone else. He was continuing the relationship. He tried to find me but couldn't, because I was with someone else now. Ethan's mother's illness had progressed rapidly. Hospital visits became more frequent. Sophia seemed more peaceful when I was with her. Her perspective on Ethan also changed. Less sad, more hopeful. "Son, are you happy?" he asked one day. Ethan looked at me. Then he pulled me into his arms and said, "Yes, Mommy, I'm happy." This sentence encompassed all the despair, all the mistakes, all the lies. One morning, the news of Ethan's mother's death came. A phone call from the hospital. I held him in my arms. That night he cried, but I didn't. Perhaps because my heart was overflowing with sorrow. Perhaps because I couldn't bear another loss. I stood beside him at the funeral. Some of his neighbors came, business partners, friends, but most importantly I was there, and perhaps, just perhaps, that was enough. 3 days after Sophia's death, Ethan came to my door without knocking. He had an old box in his hand. "My mother asked me to give this to you," he said. Inside the box was a sapphire bracelet. It looked old, beautiful, and very valuable. "This belonged to my mother," Ethan said, "and she's giving it to you. The bracelet." For a moment, Sophia's warm hand touched me symbolically as I put it on. It wasn't just a marriage certificate. It was about being part of a real family. "Wear this," Ethan said, "because you really are my wife. Because I've really started to love you." Those words extinguished a fire that had been kindled inside me. Yes, me too. I've started to like Ethan. Sophia's death, Ethan announced his decision. He wouldn't sell the company, but he would restructure it. From now on, a foundation would be established in his mother's memory, perhaps for sick children. He asked me to help as a designer. "Together," he said. "With you." This word, "together," was nothing I wanted to love anymore, but in Ethan's word, I wanted it. That night, Ethan received a message. From Mitchell. He was apologizing. He wanted to see Cadence, to take back what he said. But Ethan gave me his cell phone. "Answer me," he said. "If you want to." The exchange of messages was very brief. "Mitchell, I'm no longer your Cadence. I'm Ethan's wife. I hope you find peace in your life." Then I hung up the phone. And I looked at Ethan. There was fear in his eyes, perhaps, or perhaps hope. "Do you regret it?" he asked. "No," I said, "because coming is far more dangerous than staying." This is the end of episode 1. I've taken a step away from Mitchell, a step closer to Ethan. But no one can ever be completely safe when they're deluding themselves. Initially, the boundaries of the events were unclear. There was a process whose beginning and end were unknown. This uncertainty made decision-making difficult. Everyone acted according to their own interpretation. This prevented the formation of a common direction. The steps progressed inconsistently. This inconsistency created problems over time. Problems were suppressed with temporary solutions, but these solutions were not permanent. The same problems recurred. Repetition wore down the process. Wear and tear reduced attention. As attention decreased, errors increased. Errors piled up, and the balance of the process was completely disrupted. Within our weekly routine, life was perhaps becoming its most dangerous. In the mornings, Ethan and I would have breakfast. He would go to work and I would stay home, working on my designs and participating in Ethan's foundation project. On the surface, it was a flawless marriage. But I knew that every perfect life hides its darkest secrets. 2 weeks after Sophia's death, Ethan's accountant called me. There was a strange anxiety in his voice. "Ms. Burke, are your customers having problems with payments?" I asked. "No, it's the opposite," he said. "There are abnormal movements of money in Mr. Burke's accounts. Very large outflows. It all appears to be going towards hospital and drug purchases." After hanging up the phone, I decided to ask Ethan more detailed questions. That night, I asked him in the middle of dinner, "Ethan, are you having problems with your accounts?" He let go of his forked hand. He looked at me. Perhaps he was curious, or did he already know? "Why are you asking?" The accountant called. He mentioned some unusual transactions. Ethan was silent for a moment. Then he stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the city lights were becoming more distinct. "Cadence, I have something to tell you," he said. "But it's very difficult, and perhaps it will cause you to see me differently." My heart raced. Maybe Mitchell was right. Maybe this marriage was a flawed idea from start to finish. Maybe Ethan, like me, just wanted to transfer his own pain onto someone else's shoulders. "Tell me," I mumbled. Ethan turned around. His face was pale, as if he were shedding a weight from within. When my mother was ill, the doctors recommended a very expensive experimental treatment. It wasn't covered by insurance, but I thought, whatever I can do for my mother, I'll do it. I took out a loan at a very high interest rate from bad guys. How much? I asked. $800,000. I needed air. This amount could take my house, my cars, my whole life. Ethan, this is a very serious sum. I know, he said. After my mother died, these debts stuck with me. The loan sharks are now warning me. I'm getting threats. Maybe one day the men will come to the door. For the first time, I saw Ethan's desperation completely. He wasn't that strong. He wasn't that secure. Just like me, alone, scared, and wanting to hope. Why didn't you tell me? I asked. Because I deceived you, Ethan said. I married you to get the debts off my shoulders. But then I started to love you, and I wanted to tell you, but I was afraid. I was afraid there would be another reason for you to leave. Those words melted my heart, because he and I shared the same fear. Our decision to marry had stemmed from desperation, but now it was transforming into a real bond, and that bond was under threat. What can we do? I asked. Ethan said, I thought about checking the company's valuation. But that takes time. Maybe 6 months, maybe a year. And these guys aren't going to give me any time to wait. That night, Ethan and I didn't sleep. I sat down at the dinner table and explored financial options. Credit restructuring, expedited sale, even bankruptcy were all possibilities. But none of them seemed to make sense, as there appeared to be no way out that wasn't fraught with danger. When I left in the morning, I decided to go to work. At the graphic design company, my designs were successful. My project manager, Victoria, asked me to sit next to her. Cadence, he said, I want to see you on a very serious project. There's a big client, an international brand. If it works out, you could be the creative director. This opportunity, perhaps 6 months ago, would have been a turning point in my life. But now Ethan's debts hang over my head like a sword. Yes, I said. I want to take on a project. The project began. I spent countless hours in the consulting library, understanding client needs. I prepared designs. I gave presentations. Every day I was teetering between exhaustion and productivity. The following week, a visitor arrived at his office. A confident man in black. He was one of Ethan's lenders. His name was Marcus. He walked into my office as if he owned it. Mrs. Burke, he said, we haven't heard that our husband Ethan has paid off his debts yet. My heart had stopped, or maybe it had sped up. Ethan's money problems have no place in my business, I said. From what I understand, you're a graphic designer, aren't you? Quite successful, he said. I was thinking, maybe we could make a creative deal. In this project, you could give us your client's data. It's an important file for the design. It could lead to marketing opportunities in the districts. Absolutely not, I said. I have loyalty to my customers. Marcus smiled. A smile that held bones beneath. Seriously, Cadence. Because his debt is growing every day. The interest is skyrocketing. At the end of a year, he will have to pay another $200,000 just in interest. Did you know that? These numbers are making my head spin. Did Ethan not tell me this? Or does he know but is too afraid to share? Go, I told Marcus. Otherwise, I'll call security. Marcus left a business card and went away. But after he left, I put my head on the table and cried. I cried because the debts of the man I loved were forcing me to make such a painful choice. When I left work, I waited for Ethan to text me. I needed to talk to him properly. Giving out the customer data would be a complete violation of professional ethics, but it also meant Ethan could lose his life. When I got home, I found Ethan at his computer. Lines of code covered the entire screen. Perhaps he was searching for a solution. Ethan, I said, Marcus is looking for you. Ethan's shoulders tensed. What did he say? He's after customer data, I said. He wants me to sell it to you. Ethan stood up. He stood by the window. And what did you say? No, I replied. But Ethan, Marcus told me the debt keeps growing. The interest is piling up. Ethan looked at me. His face was clouded with various emotions. Anger, fear, shame. Cadence, maybe we shouldn't have cheated. Maybe we shouldn't have gotten married. Because now I don't want to put you in danger either. Marcus is a bad guy. Don't say that, I said. Because I'm not leaving now. You stayed with me because we stayed together. Now I'm going to stay with you. But this isn't fair, Ethan said. Your career, your life. My life is here, I said, with you. Ethan, do something for me. Go back to Marcus. Give us some time. We'll find a way out. Ethan hugged me tightly, trembling. Perhaps the world was about to collapse in a different way, and we wanted to be human. Initially, everything proceeded calmly. This calmness created a sense of security. No one felt the need to question the progress. However, over time, the pace changed. This change went unnoticed because it happened slowly. Slow changes generally go unnoticed, but their effects accumulate. These accumulated effects lead to sudden consequences. These consequences caught everyone unprepared. Reactions were delayed. Delayed reactions worsened the situation. Solution options decreased. The field narrowed, and the process was dragged to an unexpected point. The next day, I met Victoria at the office. Cadence, the client for this project, said they wanted to see you. "You'll be giving a presentation tomorrow at 2:00, she said. I prepared for the client meeting because this project had turned out to be more important than I'd ever imagined. Maybe if I become creative director, I'll earn more money. Maybe I can help Ethan with his debts. Just before the presentation, Victoria called me aside. Cadence, there's something concerning the company. We've heard that your designs are being used in collaboration with another agency. This violates the non-compete and confidentiality agreements. What? I said. I didn't do anything. I felt a chill run down my spine. I didn't send anything. But did someone use my computer? Or was it Ethan? No, Ethan couldn't do that. I'll ask him to do some research, I said. We'll do it, said Victoria. But right now I need to remove you from this project. The disciplinary committee will want to question you. I was canceled before the presentation. The project was given to someone else. As I was leaving the office, my cell phone rang. It was Ethan. Cadence, come home, she said. I want to help, but something is happening. When I got home, Ethan's computer was on. It contained logs of his access to my designs. And something very strange. A message had been sent from my email address. But I didn't send it. Ethan, this mail isn't for me, I said. Ethan said, but someone accessed your computer. Maybe someone stole your password. Or maybe someone hacked the company network. That night, we investigated the events. Computer history, email records. Ethan, being someone who worked in software, was able to trace the clues. The IP address came from a coffee shop right next to the office building. But to go back further, someone with remote access could have recorded all my keystrokes, including passwords. Keylogger, Ethan said. Someone installed tracking software on your computer. Who? I asked. And why? Ethan changed my perspective. Cadence, maybe Marcus, maybe someone else. But it could also be just to avoid hurting you. Maybe not to steal your designs. Maybe to get you fired. Why would he do something like that? Because if you lose your job, you'll have fewer options for handing over customer data. You might even be forced to do it. All that weight suddenly lifted from my head. Perhaps this whole marriage was a web that started with me. Perhaps Marcus had used Ethan to trap me. Ethan, I said, tell him you want me to untie you. If it will save you from these debts. Absolutely not, Ethan said. Because I love you, and I can't betray you. But I knew that love, often, wasn't enough in the face of despair. The next morning, the IT department called me in. The computer history did show an abnormally high level of access. But there was something even stranger. An employee named Sophia had far more access than I'd anticipated. Sophia? I asked. Victoria's assistant. Yes, said the IT manager. And what's even stranger is, he has access to the program from his computer too. It's as if the two of them are working together, Sophia and Victoria. Were they trying to steal my projects? But why did she tell me about Victoria? Maybe there was some kind of game going on within the company. Maybe Sophia was using Victoria. I called Victoria over. We need to talk about your computer history, I said. Victoria's face turned pale. Cadence, I'm not unaware of this situation, she said. Sophia was my friend. She's in a very difficult situation. Her daughter needs open-heart surgery. She's lost money. She's having financial problems. So they stole me and my customer data? I asked. Living with very successful heart surgeries isn't bad, Victoria said. And Cadence, I'm in a difficult situation too. I wanted a promotion. If this project fails, There is no justice in this company, only desperation. Perhaps all desperation is tested on others. I called the police. The next day, Sophia was arrested. Victoria resigned. But it seemed like my job was already over. I'd lost my creative director position. I'd been removed from the project. When I asked to stay at the company, the manager told me, Cadence, you're very talented, but there's too much chaos around you. You need to resign, or we'll have to fire you. I resigned. I found Ethan at home. He was still working on his computer. Did you leave your office? He asked. Yes, I said. Everything's ruined, Ethan. All of us. Sophia, Victoria, your debts, my job. Ethan stood up and pulled me into his arms. Cadence. Maybe this isn't an end in itself. Maybe it's the beginning. Together we can find a different path. That night we made a decision. We wouldn't give Marcus the customer data. Instead, we would sell Ethan's company early. This would mean paying off all the debts, but nothing would be left. But peace at least would be at our doorstep. However, Marcus decided to break the deal. A week later, a fight broke out at our door. The men called building management. The police found Ethan in the middle of the video, protecting me while I was giving him a girl. That day, I felt protected. Ethan had put on a courier's uniform. He'd started working another job after his office was sold to pay off debts. Maybe low-paying, maybe humiliating, but he went to work. Every day. Months passed. In the midst of unemployment, I started working as a freelance designer. Ethan's I helped with the courier job. Even though we didn't have money, instead of just using our money, we could turn to each other for help. One afternoon, an unexpected person knocked on the door. Mitchell. Cadence, he said. I've been tracking your life. Mitchell, what are you doing here? I asked. I came to apologize, he said. I know it's too late, but I wanted to see you one last time, because I found my married wife, and I realized it was a mistake. Ethan was sitting behind my door. He was watching, strangely calmly. Mitchell, I'm not doing very well, I said. The failure with Ethan, the company debts. Maybe it wasn't better than being with you. Maybe, said Mitchell. But are you happy? Ethan's eyes. He answered for me. He's very happy. Mitchell left. This time he never came back. Ethan's debts were slowly being paid off, with every meal we shared, with every hour we worked. A year later, his courier job was over, and he'd started as a technical director at another software company. This time, a much better salary. Maybe there was an exit. Maybe there was hope. One evening, I sat on the couch and worked on my designs. Ethan had the phone to his ear. He seemed to be negotiating a project. Yes, he says. This package is perfect for us. Thank you. She hung up the phone and smiled at me. Cadence, we're going to succeed. The whole world will succeed together. Tonight, I kissed Ethan for the first time. Really, no lies, no desperation. Just love. What happened wasn't limited to a single person. Multiple factors were at play simultaneously. These factors influenced each other, but this interaction wasn't clear. Everyone only saw their own share of the problem. This made understanding the whole difficult. Piecemeal assessments were made, and these assessments were incomplete. These incomplete assessments led to incorrect conclusions. These incorrect conclusions created further errors. These errors accumulated. This accumulation created pressure. This pressure accelerated decisions. These accelerated decisions damaged the process, and control was gradually lost. The most dangerous thing about happiness is thinking it can last a long time. 2 years had passed since our marriage, and every day when I saw Ethan's face, my heart would tremble with a slight joy. His days as a delivery man were behind him. He was successfully managing his coaching career, and I, as a freelance designer, had my own clients. Life had finally begun to breathe again. That morning I saw a photograph in the newspaper. The Sterning family, international trade directors. When I heard their names for the first time, something in my subconscious trembled, but I said nothing. I didn't tell Ethan, because perhaps it was too late. Perhaps there were secrets that would never be revealed. The following week, I saw Ethan leave work early. His face was pale. He looked as if his soul had left his body. Ethan, are you all right? I asked. Cadence, give me a minute to sit down, she said. I sat down on the couch. Ethan took my hand. He spoke in a trembling voice. Call me from the company. My mother's former lawyer told me something. I'd love to ask him, but he's gone. But the lawyer said my mother said that I wasn't who I was. I held my breath. What do you want to say? My mother adopted me, Ethan said. I'm not her biological son. When I was very young, they took me from an orphanage, and they changed my name. My old name was James Sterling. The room turned. Sterling. The name in the newspaper. Ethan, your family, I began, but couldn't finish my sentence. Yes, she said. Apparently, the Stern family had a very old daughter. They abandoned her, and my mother started looking for them. After a long time, she found me and they took me in. But she never dared to tell me. Ethan's past was being revealed once again, but this time it was more complicated. Because it wasn't just his secret. It was the secret of the Stern family as well. The lawyer gave me an address, Ethan said. The address of the Stern family's office in the city. He said they might be interested in taking responsibility. Are you going? I asked. I don't know, said Ethan. Because I don't know them. And maybe they won't want to know me. But sometimes fate doesn't give us choices. Because what seems like a choice is actually just a path. A week later, Ethan went to the Stern office. I waited at home. He didn't return until 9 o'clock in the evening. The phone vibrated. Cadence, pick me up, Ethan said. His voice sounded broken. I found him in a strange place called the Courthouse. The Stern family's lawyer was waiting there. A strange meeting had been arranged. When the Stern family, two middle-aged men in expensive clothes, carrying heavy briefcases, saw Ethan, perhaps they recognized him, or perhaps they didn't, because their faces were blank. Mr. Burke, said Stering's father, we would like to believe that you will replace your family, your old family, but it's not that simple. We need to talk about your missing sister. Ethan tilted his head back. Sister? Destiny, said Stering's mother. Your sister. We abandoned her a few years ago, and now we've started looking for her. These secrets were being revealed one by one. The Stern family was part of an international money laundering ring. When they lost the money, they fled quickly, leaving Destiny behind, because she was too expensive to care for, because a child had become a burden. Now, said the lawyer, the Stern family wants to find and take Destiny, because she inherited millions of dollars from her grandmother, and she would need custody. Mr. Burke, if you help us find your sister, you may receive a portion of that inheritance. Ethan looked at me, because only I understood. Only I knew that this situation was very, very wrong. No, said Ethan. Destiny cannot be bought by anyone. If you want to be a part of her, then you are just like those who abandoned her. But the lawyer perhaps crossed a line. Perhaps he kept a record of what Ethan might do, because weeks later we received a subpoena. The Sting family had sued Ethan. They claimed that he was hiding the inheritance for a court decision. The trial required a lot of paperwork, a lot of lawyers, a lot of lies. Ethan's lawyer reviewed his case and found a surprise. Ethan, while not actually Stern's son, was legally entitled to an inheritance, because the Stern family had officially adopted him. But this only complicated things further when Destiny was lost. In court, the judge asked, Mr. Burke, what do you plan to do with this inheritance? Ethan stood up and replied, Your Honor, I want to use this money to find and retrieve Destiny, because she is my sister, and because this Sting family has a very, very distant connection to me. But Destiny, he abandoned it. Therefore, I don't want any part of this inheritance. The court fell silent. The judge wiped his eyes. That's one of the noblest things I've ever heard in court, he said. Do you want to withdraw the case? Ethan said. But I want to make an offer to the Stern family. If they help us find and retrieve Destiny with this inheritance, I might try to forgive them. The Sterling family bowed their heads, for perhaps for the first time. They understood that even their money was worthless if it wasn't money itself. Finding Destiny wasn't easy at all. But Ethan hired a private investigator. Perhaps the inheritance was finally going to be used for something. For a month they played the game. Finally, Destiny, now 7 years old, was found in an orphanage. Ethan walked through the door, and a little girl clung to him. Dad? The child asked. Are you Dad? Ethan cried. Perhaps for the first time the love of a child stirred within him. He brought Destiny home. He introduced her to me. The little girl asked me, Are you Anne? Yes, I said. I'm Anne Cadence, and you are very, very special. Destiny only drew. Colorful things, fantasy things. Perhaps the orphanage had taken away her color. But at home, little by little, she smiled. She began to flourish. The Stern family didn't try to take Destiny. Perhaps it was because they understood that a child isn't just money. A child is love. And perhaps Ethan's love was more valuable than their money. But problems are never completely solved. They are only transformed. One evening, Destiny approached me. Mom, she said, why did my mother and father leave me? This question was the central question of all her questions. Perhaps I shouldn't have answered it. Perhaps I should have lied. But I answered, because they were very, very unstable people. Money was more important to them than love. But this isn't your fault, my love. This is their fault. I love you, Anne, Destiny said. I love you too, I said. And I hugged her. Legally, adopting Destiny required a lengthy process. The court needed to investigate Ethan's past. They thought maybe he has a criminal record. Maybe he has debts. But Ethan is clean now. The debts have been paid. The past has been rectified. Because sometimes people change when love becomes a duty. The court gave destiny to us. Perhaps this was the most beautiful part of fate. 6 months later, Ethan knelt before me. In his hand, he held a simple gold ring. "Cadence," he said. "Because you saved me. Because you loved Destiny, you loved her with me. Please be my real wife. Please let this wedding be real, not just legal." We got married. This time, in a tea garden across the street. Destiny guided us with flowers. Neighbors, friends, Priya, they were all there. This time love was untainted by any lies. Destiny slowly began to open up at home. Her drawings became more vibrant. Her laughter echoed throughout the house. Perhaps only children raised with love are less colorful, but perhaps they are also less resilient. A year later, Ethan's software company was a huge success. Big companies wanted to partner with him. His salary was far more than he had initially imagined. But Ethan made a different decision. "Cadence," she said. "I want to start my own company. But separately, we'll develop software, but for kids like Destiny, for kids with special needs, if they, like me, need a little guidance and love." This thought brought tears to my eyes. Because perhaps Ethan wanted to change not only his own destiny, but also the destinies of others. The orphanage director went to talk to him about the project, about the company. If it worked, maybe the children at the orphanage could learn software development. Maybe they could be offered job opportunities. Maybe they, like Destiny, could find a loving family. The orphanage accepted her. They started the project. Ethan was working on it. I was doing the design. Destiny would sometimes come to the office and say, "Dad, give me this," and Ethan would teach her design. 3 years have passed. Ethan's foundation has employed more than 100 children, teaching them software skills. Perhaps this is the smallest difference in the world, but perhaps the most significant. One weekend, I was sitting at home and reading the news about Ethan, young businessman launches. Program for abandoned children. Next to the article was his photo, and maybe a little bit of Destiny's too, from Mitchell on my cell phone. "Cadence, did you hear? Ethan has become very successful. I understand he made a mistake." I didn't answer, because Mitchell perhaps would never understand. Success isn't money. Success is love. Success is that child's smile. Success is Ethan hugging me with teary eyes every morning, because perhaps the pain of the past never completely disappears. It only transforms into meaning. The Stern family perhaps had stayed distant. Perhaps they never questioned Destiny. Perhaps their money protected them as much as a court case. But once, Destiny asked me, "Mom, do my family ever think about this?" I had to answer. The answer perhaps was a lesson. Destiny. People often make the wrong choices. But choices are destiny. If they abandoned you, it's only their loss. Because I won you, and Father Ethan won you too. Destiny leaned her head back. Maybe she understood. Maybe she would never understand. But she knew that here, at home, she was loved. Destiny, now 7 years old, sometimes drew. Maybe she would be a programmer. Maybe an artist. Maybe she was just a happy person. If she was happy, maybe that was the success of my life. Ethan and I would sometimes sit on our balcony at night. The city lights shone from above. Perhaps those lights were the lives of many people. Perhaps they all began out of desperation. Perhaps they all, like Ethan's and my own, were transformed by love. "Cadence," Ethan would say. "Don't you have any regrets?" That day at the courthouse, when I was going to marry a stranger. "Never," I said. "Because you've stopped being a stranger. You've become my life." Perhaps this is the lesson that all stories must understand. Destiny, perhaps, is not chosen, but love is chosen. Perhaps if two people come together out of desperation, perhaps it has a meaning. Perhaps Destiny wants to write us into a sentence without words. And perhaps that sentence is simply, if there is love, everything is possible. Years later, Destiny grew up. She worked at Ethan's software company. I continued with my design work, but now I've shifted my focus to teaching children. I thought maybe we should want to adopt other children. Maybe we, as a family, would like to make room for more children who need more love. Ethan smiled quietly at the beginning. "We're ready," he simply said. And perhaps this was indeed the most beautiful ending to Choices in Destiny, because no one could have known that. Someone waiting for half an hour in front of the cold walls of the courthouse would one day become the very definition of happiness. Mitchell may have married another woman, perhaps started another life, but there was one thing he would never know. Cadence was never as happy as they had wanted her to be as his wife. Perhaps not even after she became Ethan's wife. Because perhaps fate had prepared the courthouse from the very beginning. Perhaps the cold walls of life, perhaps the forgotten documents, perhaps all this despair, perhaps it was all there to bring Ethan and me together. Perhaps love, in its simplest form, meant this: abandoning one's own lies for another, sharing one's own despair for another, hoping for another, even in an uncertain future, in a marriage fraught with danger. Last morning we sent Destiny to school. Ethan smiled at me. I kissed him, because every morning was a choice. The choice to stay here. The choice to love. The choice to live. And perhaps this was the end of the whole story. Because perhaps it would never end. Perhaps it would begin again every day. Perhaps as long as fate and love immersed themselves, it would be summer and summer and summer. But perhaps this is for the best.